Okay, there, I fixed that. Throughout today's session, please enter your questions into the chat box and we will answer those questions during our Q&A. I want to thank you all for participating today and I hope you all enjoy it. Okay, so do I have Forrest, Shannon, and Kelvin?
Yes. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Good. Can you hear me as well?
I can hear you.
And what about me?
I can hear you.
Okay.
Welcome. Thank you guys. I'm so excited to have you all talk about your experiences today and how it's impacting your internal and external communities. So I'm going to start off with the first question. And that first question is, what effect has the coronavirus pandemic had on your institution and your work life? And we can start with anyone.
I'll go first. I'll go first. First, I want to say hi to Shannon and Kelvin. I haven't had a chance to speak to them, so I hope y'all and everybody out there is doing fine and well and being safe.
Good morning, Forrest.
Yeah. Well, it's where do you start? Last year, I guess let me give a little bit of a preface to what's going on. Last year, I was at Fayetteville State University in Fayetteville, North Carolina, and as of May 4th of this year, I came on over to North Carolina A&T, which is in Greensboro, North Carolina. So I was a director at Fayetteville. Now I'm the assistant dean here at A&T. And, they talk about technology being, a disruption, whether in healthcare, whether in higher education. But I tell you, the pandemic is a true perfect disruption. It has, partitioned us in all walks of life, all throughout our culture, economy, and it has isolated us. And libraries and all entities are trying to figure out how to reinvent themselves on the fly. And it's just amazing to see how universities, and I'm speaking of universities because that's where I am, how we're adjusting, how we're adapting. I think that at Fayetteville, when I was at Fayetteville, and I'm going to speak on both parts here because I've had some experience when I left Fayetteville and at A&T now. But I think at Fayetteville, what we tried to do was, we tried to adjust on the fly. There's a lot of things that came with us, a lot of information, a lot of uncertainty, a lot of unknowns still to this day. It's pretty much still the same way. But I think one of the things we tried to do was communicate with our students. I think at my experience at Fayetteville, students felt the disconnect after everything came to fruition with the public health issue. And what we wanted to try to do is reach out to the students to ensure that they have our support, university support, and library support. And so that's what I commend Fayetteville State on in regards to making sure they kept in contact with the students. Everybody was going through something. Faculty, staff, students, parents, everybody was affected by this. So that was one of the major things that I really appreciated at Fayetteville State. I can go on and on, but I want to leave some time for Shannon and Kelvin to David.
Thank you, Forrest. I'll jump in. So I am also at a university. I'm at a health sciences university, and we have been I think it was Sunday, March 15th, when the governor said all students in higher ed and K through 12 will move to online learning and all non-essential staff will work from home. And that was with no warning to our university presidents. And so it was a chaotic Sunday, and it required us to shift into gear really quickly. But fortunately, Charleston, and if any of you have ever been to Charleston, have ever lived in Charleston, know anything about Charleston, Charleston is in a very active hurricane zone. And so our library has, we have a very robust emergency preparedness plan that we have been able to execute every year since I got here in 2014. And so we've executed it, we've recalibrated it. And one of my greatest fears is that we were going to get caught off guard and not be able to offer any library services. And so we had already started moving towards, so all of the staff had the equipment that they needed. We already started moving to a laptop environment where from the librarians to the frontline information professionals had laptops. So we had the equipment. So we were ready to pivot, but we had people who were not ready to work from home because they had never worked from home before. And so I think our university has handled it well. I think the library has handled it even better because we were well positioned, because we didn't have to try to rush to buy equipment. We are also a virtual library. We began deaccessioning our collections back in 2010. And so we virtually have moved everything online. And so our campus is used to accessing resources remotely from environments outside of the library. So that wasn't the major problem for us. For me, it was having 44 staff members scattered about the city with different rates of adoption to technology. And some people had never had to use WebEx. They never had to use Teams. And so making sure that they were ready to work, because I didn't want to put anybody out of work or make anybody have to take vacation. So we had to make quick moves. And so it's impacted the work life. It's probably impacted mine's the most because, I've had to monitor and to provide TLC for people who, I'm normally able to walk around the building and touch them and see them and talk to them. And so I'm figuring out how to do that in a virtual environment so that people wouldn't feel isolated. So in terms of how our university is adjusting, the university has adjusted well. We learned something new every day and put some things in place every day. We saw where some of the disparities were. I know we in the library, we were prepared to move out of our building too, because we were undergoing a renovation, and we hadn't, it exposed some technology disparities, and for me, it's made me really look at my privilege too, because I made some assumptions in terms of what our staff had. We assumed everybody had the internet, and that wasn't the case, but I still needed to set them up for success at home. So we had to buy internet hotspots for people. So it's been controlled chaos, but it's been something that we've learned from, and that, I think we're going to be very different from it when we eventually come back to work. But, we're still working from home. We've been working from home since March 16th, and we'll likely be in this work from home mode until the end of the summer. And I'm just happy that I didn't have to lay anybody off or furlough anybody, that everybody from some of our part-timers to the full-time staff are working from home, because we found work for everybody. So that's how we're doing here in Charleston.
Good morning, everybody. This is Kelvin. Again, I'm the director of the Broward County Public Libraries. So it's good to hear from Forrest and Shannon from a university standpoint, and really talk about, from a public library standpoint, how we've been handling this. So for our institution and work life, we, around March 17th, closed to the public, but our staff has continued to report to work. So I have been reporting to work every day throughout this entire, process, planning what's happening in the present, pivoting, adjusting, trying to be flexible, but also trying to plan for what we're going to have as our new normal. We started curbside walk-up service 2 weeks ago at our major library, 7 of our major library systems. And then we rolled out to the additional locations this past Monday. And I'm planning in 2 weeks to actually start serving the public in some kind of limited service process with computers, having people in the libraries. And so our issues are, how we do summer learning, which is all virtual for us this year. I don't know, many other public libraries are doing the same thing. We also are here in June 1st was the start of hurricane season. So we are also in hurricane preparedness process, because we my staff serves as primary shelter managers during hurricanes. So if there's a hurricane, we're going to have to deal with not only the coronavirus pandemic, but also how we handle people being, so close together in the hurricane shelters. So we've been in a place where we've had to deal with nearly 1,000 employees that work under me and with me, having them still come into the library. We had to, because we didn't lay anybody off and no furloughs. So how do we find some work for everybody to do? So one of the things that we've done over this process is we did a physical inventory of our 2 million items that we had in the collection. Also started moving things around again and preparing a space for the patrons when they start coming back in. And at the same time, we've had to increase and enhance our virtual programming. So my work life, social life, everything. Again, I've been working, so no day off, pretty much for me during this entire process. We did implement something for our staff, and that is a countywide process because we weren't able to have the 6,000 plus employees all telework. We give people once a week, they get a social distancing day. So within the library system, I am the only library staff member that's actually working every day, and they all get a social distancing day. So so we can do our best and not, spread the virus. So that's it. I know there's some other questions, so I'm going to talk about some other things when we get to those points.
Thank you. What are some ways that your institution has responded to meet the digital needs of your community during this pandemic, and mostly your patrons? I'm talking about patrons there. How are your librarians working to meet the demands of troubleshooting issues virtually?
So, go ahead, Kelvin.
No, I'll jump in since I was already continuing on, Shannon. Thank you. So I'll say, again, for us, I think we were fortunate in that we had already here in Broward been planning to move a lot of our programming virtually. We really had enhanced our digital offerings to our airport, to our port locations, also with buses and parks. And so we had really expanded our services. But what we hadn't planned on was how we actually duplicate those services like story times, like reference work, and also how do we partner with others who are delivering programming to also offer that to the community. So that's some of the things that we've done. Our increased our social media, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. Those have been godsends for us. So we're able to help our customers, and also since we have been in the buildings, that made us very that's been having us be successful in actually troubleshooting any issues that our customers have had with their online library cards, and or any issues that they've been having with our electronic resources.
And so to piggyback on what Kelvin was saying, so I'm going to give and they're not on the call, so they won't hear this shout out, but I want to give a shout out to my entire team, because I know the question asked about how are the librarians troubleshooting, but I'm going to give a shout out to all of the information professionals that work at my library, because I try not to make a distinction in the librarians and the info professionals, because it has taken every single person that works in the library to make this thing work. Probably the group that's doing the lion's share of the troubleshooting has been my IT team. it was their responsibility to make sure that not only did we have the equipment, that people knew how to use the equipment and how to use some of the tools that they were now being exposed to. So it's been an all hands on deck endeavor in terms of, I've seen the staff supporting each other and helping each other learn things that, in ways that they had not before. And so I just wanted to give a shout out to that. But also in terms of what we've been doing. So again, we're on the health sciences campus. And so I'm sitting in my office right now and I look out my window and I look directly at our hospital. And so what some of my staff has been doing, they've been printing, assisting with printing personal protective equipment for healthcare professionals. And, we were doing it in conjunction with other local entities who were also helping, because our health professionals, they couldn't get the equipment. And so we've been working with some physicians to create what they wanted and then print them. So that has been happening. And of course, during this time, people's equipment stopped working. And so we don't check out books, but we check out lots of equipment. And so, with my management team had made a decision on March 16th that if anybody needed anything, that we were going to be the ones who came down to give someone a laptop or to give someone an iPad. So we've done that. We've also had to lend equipment to other people at the university in terms of staff members, because they just didn't have the equipment to work. And so I think, I'm always at meetings saying, oh, the library has a tech lending program and we can lend you this and we can support you in the curriculum with that. And people I thought they were not hearing me, but they were hearing me, because when things started going down and they didn't have what they needed, they knew exactly who to turn to. So we've been able to support the campus in that. We've also had plans to turn on a chat service, and we turned it on during the pandemic, and we've been surprised at how well received it has been in terms of having the real-time assistance through chat. And so we turned that on. So those were the things that we've done in support of our campus. Troubleshooting access issues to journals and to ebooks, and those things are things that the staff were monitoring anyway. And because again we are virtually a virtual library, there weren't many issues in terms of those types of troubleshooting issues. It was more so, I don't know how to use WebEx, turn on your microphone, you're on mute, those types of things that people, or turn off your camera, your bandwidth is low. So it was more helping people learn the tools that they had to use before. So that's how it was here. So I'll shut up and let Forrest jump in.
Well, I think one of the things that I think a lot of academic libraries are doing is they're relying on their chat services, their virtual services. These are some of the services that probably before haven't gotten the heightened that it's probably deserves. I think if you look at a lot of faculty or the community, they really rely on, when we were open, everything was normal, in-house services. But I think it has come to the time where it's a benefit now for us to really focus on our virtual services and actually show, if you could draw anything good from this, which is a question that comes on later, it's to actually show how the validity of our online services and how important they always have been and are now. I think one of the things we did at Fayetteville State was, there was a point in time between middle May to April 1st where everything was hectic. And, we said, we wanted to show our value on campus. So decided just take all of our laptops. We gave them all the IT. We kind of collaborated with the plan, and we instructed them and handed out to the people that need it. Whether it be in Fayetteville is a 60% online campus. And I'm sure by the time fall or 2021 comes, it might be up to 80%. But I think giving them the resources and the tools, particularly the laptops, I think that helped in a great deal. Which brings to another point. I think COVID situation has accentuated and highlighted a lot of issues going on in the real world, whether it be health disparities, whether it be the digital divide. So which is just a microcosm of the world, which still is prevalent in academia. So there are a lot of students, Fayetteville State and North Carolina A&T being an HBCU. You are going to get students from rural, urban, and all across walks of life that are not where they need to be financially. So the library helping out in those ways are beneficial highly, and I'm just so proud to be a part of that. At A&T, with the little time that I've been there, it's kind of the same thing. We developed a lending laptop program that Shannon's kind of touched on what she's doing at her location. And, we're just finding ways to connect with the students and get them what they need. I definitely think that, one of the things that if I wrap it up and I hear both of my peers talking, is accessibility in marketing and promotion. That's what I take from this. And I definitely think in terms of marketing and promotion, we definitely can do more. I think we've done a lot before. However, it's just, you look at faculty and they're always at the time of need. We've been preaching this for years now. At every university I've been at, we've always marketed and promoted, but it doesn't really hit home until I guess someone really needs something. And so, you look at how you can do things better. You can always, develop a marketing and promotion plan better, or highlight certain items or resources that you want to make sure your students and faculty and university community have. But that's an enduring task, and that will always be relevant. But so as far as troubleshooting, I think, Zoom and just the whole collaboration, and if I know there's individuals who are not using Teams might want to jump on Teams. I was kind of, I guess, confused at first why everybody was using Zoom. And I understand that it's free and it's a free open source web tool, but I mean, Teams is just as valuable, or probably more value, since it's probably a little bit safer and structured within the university setting. So if you're not using Teams, I suggest you have time to have one of your systems individuals, train some individuals on that. That's something that probably could be done if you're trying to find things to do. But Teams, I think, works well. Of course, Zoom is fine, but I think Teams is good as well. But troubleshooting, just collaborating, getting everybody on the same page in regards to meeting, finding out what needs to be done, and people are solving problems in different ways now. So that's what we're doing.
Excuse me. How have these changes affected the workflow of your staff, and how are your staff coping?
Well, I'll just turn around if nobody minds. Well, at Fayetteville, I think we had a long discussion with our provost. It was a beneficial discussion, very informative. Of course, everybody came to the fork in the road and had to, I guess, decide who were your mandatory employees and who were the employees who you had to try and find other things for. Of course, you can always find productive work, but true meaningful work. And so we had a separation in that. And what we decided to do at Fayetteville was, which is a great idea. Again, it goes back to my first answer as far as connecting with the students. They felt disconnected. There was a lot of straining issues. So we took some of our staff who was not mandatory, and the provost wanted to do set up like a call center. So individuals, usually SHRA individuals who weren't really working on high-end tasks, they wanted to include them all in a type of a call center so they can reach out to students to see if they had any issues or needs or resources being met. So this was really beneficial for our frontline customer service staff, since they were frontline customer service anyway, taking their strengths and their skill sets and put them into a call center type atmosphere. So I think that was one of the things that was done well at Fayetteville State. I think collaborating, we jumped on the idea that this would be a morale booster for them, take their mind off other things as well, but still do productive tasks and duties to help the larger issue, which is entitled, helping the students regardless of how you do it. So I think that was one of the things that we did well there.
And in terms of how our staff is coping, one of the things that that I was worried about going in was that this was going to be such a drastic change for staff that that, you know, some people were going to adjust well and some people were going to struggle. And so what we found is that we have some staff who are thriving. And I think right now, if I ask them if they wanted to come back into the office, they feel like they're much more productive at home. Fine. We have some who as I was calling just to do check-ins with people, I kind of recognized that some people were having a hard time, whether it was, you know, they're trying to work from home, but also trying to be teachers at home with their kids, or they had other people at home, or they lived alone and just started feeling isolated. And so one of the things that we did early on was I had a therapist from Texas to do a 3-part wellness series for the staff, just so that people would have some strategies to help them, you know, pull themselves out of, you know, any potential depression that they were feeling, any isolation that we're feeling, any just any feelings that they were having in terms of struggling with working from home and not having the sense of community that they have at work. And so, you know, we did that. We've tried to do some things, you know, bring your favorite book to our weekly staff huddle. We have a weekly staff huddle on Mondays just to kick the week off, so that, you know, that gives me a chance to see everybody's face on screen, gives me a chance to share any information that I've learned at our leadership meetings. It's also given us a chance to learn some things about staff, because we've tried to integrate, you know, hey, let's get on at 12 to color, or let's, you know, on Monday, everybody's going to rep their favorite team, or something to try to build community, because that was the piece that that was missing. And I think most of us probably don't realize how much we miss our coworkers, because they're such a huge part of our lives. If you work a 10, 12-hour day, you potentially are with your coworkers much longer than you are with your family. And so people were really missing, you know, the water cooler conversations, or the hallway conversations, or just stopping by the service point. So trying to figure out how to integrate some of that back into the day. And then just, you know, people have learned new things, which has been good. People you haven't been able to get to embrace or learn technology had no choice. And so they learned things and learned, wow, I wish I had been using this before, because it's easier for me to do things. So we've realized some really good benefits. Now it's trying to figure out how to integrate and incorporate some of that in on-site when we're back on campus.
For us, as I mentioned, you know, the staff has been reporting. Certainly, we have, you know, the challenges of a lot of staff initially didn't want to interact with one another, especially before, I guess you would say, the cases started to peak here in South Florida, and we were still requiring people to come in to work and trying to follow the CDC guidelines. And, you know, should people wear masks, not wear masks was an initial issue. We were one of the last major library systems to actually close to the public. And so we, up until March 17th, we had thousands of people still coming to the library. And we were trying to wipe down, you know, computers and doors, and we increased our facilities services to help as well. But, you know, as you know, and as you probably have, you know, seen and heard, you know, you have to do multiple things in trying not to contract the virus: social distancing, wearing masks, you know, having, you know, ultraviolet light. And we also the county also threw in some other issues that, you know, have affected some of our folks. And that is that we had testing centers, COVID-19 testing centers near 2 of my libraries. So you got, you know, all these dynamics going on. And, you know, for the coping, I think that some have coped well, others have not coped as well. That's just the honest, honest answer. I can tell you what I'm doing to help cope. I'm on a weekly call with some of my fraternity brothers, and we're just trying to cope, and that's helping me cope in trying to lead and manage and plan and try to uplift people's spirits, while we go through this. And, I'm having to do, a very tough job in that, I work for the county. And as I said, the county is going in this direction. And as a county agency, I follow the county's guidance and trying to, put things in place. Luckily, we aren't open to the public yet. As I said, we're planning to do that in a couple of weeks. Whereas Palm Beach County, which is just to the north of me, and Miami-Dade, Palm Beach is already open to the public. They open June 1st, and Miami-Dade is probably going to open up sometime within the next week. And I've been able to kind of push that off and not be open to the public yet. And that's helping, I think, my staff see that I am really concerned about them and the public and just managing this whole situation.
What have you found to be challenging or difficult during this time? I know you guys have covered a little bit of that, but I wasn't sure if you wanted to elaborate a little more.
Yeah. Well, I want to be selfish, but I'll start off with me. But personally, I mean, just the move itself, during the time of transition, I mean, it's just totally peculiar, and then that's something I want to talk about professionally in a couple of months. It's just, the transition in the time of COVID and other things going on in the world, which will be highlighted later. But, I just think that, work-life balance, I know both individuals touched on that. You talk about, raising kids, and, you talk about, again, we talk about it's affecting every aspect of your life. So, you might be a administrator in the library from 8 to 8, but from 8 to 12 or 24/7, you are educator at home and daddy at home, So finding that balance and having an understanding with your staff and let them know you have some, understanding and empathy about that. It goes a long way. I think this is exposing a lot of different things. You're learning a lot about yourself, learning a lot about your staff. Open up a little more because times are hard, and you get to know them. Challenging. You look at budget cuts as well. You look at North Carolina. We haven't had a budget since last year, or excuse me, we didn't have a budget last year. So a lot of people there's a lot of murmurs, a lot of talking within staff, outside of staff, state employees. What's the future to come? After July 1st, will we have another budget? Will we double the budget from last year that we didn't get, So it's a lot of questions. You talk about being furloughed. You talk about not having a job. You talk about being repositioned. And then, you get certain figures from your provost or chancellor, maybe looking at certain percentages of adjustment, and you try to find out where you can find those adjustments in your budgets. So, yeah, I mean, these are challenging times. I just ask that, all directors and deans just make sure you can communicate as much as possible, be transparent as possible to make your staff be at ease. Just a while ago, we talked about certain things you can do. As soon as I got to North Carolina A&T, they had a virtual orientation onboarding process, which was awesome. So kudos to them. It was very well set up, very professional. Nothing was lagging. I got all my benefits and documents, and things were, you're learning, all the things that librarians have been doing in the past. It's being needed now. You look at these different types of apps, and scanning apps, and all these things that at once we're taking as something as cool. Now it is mandatory and necessity. And so all these, digital items are coming to fruition, actually not just for fun, but for actual execution of survival. And I find that very a blessing. But I mean, yeah, those are the questions that the staff is having. So that's what I find challenging. Work-life balance, making sure that the staff is at ease, and just trying to figure out how North Carolina is going to move forward, and making sure that their students all across the board and and staff are going to be fine. You want to have that state of mind to where that we're going to be okay. You know what I mean? That we're going to be okay.
So I second what you said, Forrest. For me, it's probably the biggest challenge has been remembering to take care of me, to do what I need to do for me. I think I went all in making sure that the staff was okay, setting up the series with the therapist, making sure that I, with people who didn't report directly to me, that I would call through Teams and do 5-minute check-ins with them just to see how they were doing, having the weekly staff huddles. And at some point, my admin team said, you know what, you haven't taken a day off. And so we've looked through your calendar, and here's the days that you don't log on here because you got to take care of you. And so that's been the most important thing, is taking care of me and recognizing that as a director, I can't pour from an empty cup. So that's been the most important thing. Probably the most difficult thing is managing expectations of external people to the library, because I didn't want to be in a position where someone would say, oh, the library should open. And, and what can you all do to manage services or, be on site? Because I was against that. And I didn't want to sacrifice my staff who were worried about being in close proximity with people or coming. We're on a health sciences campus. There are sick people and COVID patients on our campus, and we can look at the hospital out. The library sits in the middle of the campus, and the hospital is right next door. So there were legitimate concerns, and we knew we didn't have the cleaning supplies, even though we have some stuff on site. We don't have the cleaning supplies. You can't get masks. And so managing that expectation and helping the leadership see that the library staff can't be your front line. It's nothing, in here that we can't do. We'll put things in place that if people need things, that absolutely we'll make sure that they get them. But it's no point for us we don't want to be essential this time. And so managing that expectation has been the difficult, probably the most difficult. I haven't gotten a lot of pushback yet, but managing that expectation, and I knew I had made a breakthrough when I heard my provost say on a call with the leadership that the library is not opening until the end of the summer. And I was like, okay, my work is done here. My work is done here. We can work in the background and get this place prepared for the fall. And we can't do that with students in the space, in the way. And so give us the room to do that. And so that's been the most difficult part.
So I would definitely say, again, ditto to what Forrest and Shannon said regarding, taking some time and, for yourself. And so I have tried to do that even without having, specifically having any days off. Even, I get calls from the public library, of course, Saturdays and Sundays. So essentially I'm on call all the time for whatever is going on. And so that's been difficult. And I would say, the challenging, the real challenges have been occurring just over the past, week with what's happening around the country. Here in Fort Lauderdale as well, we had some damage to some of my vehicles here, and then we also had some graffiti on the side of the main library. We have a lot of damage here in the downtown area. So now with all the other things going on, that's now a new yet another challenge as well, on top of individuals. Shannon talked about those external forces. And with the public library, I don't have the privilege to kind of just put out the external, because we actually have people, literally yesterday at our government center across the street, we had people protesting because they are ready they want us to open the commission meetings back up to people again. So that the external forces are certainly put a lot of pressure on us, and have been putting pressure on the library and me in particular since this started. People have reached out and said, I don't understand why you're closed. I don't understand why I can't come in and use the computer. I don't understand. And then you have all these other, then you have, on the other hand, people who say, don't close, don't open, don't open, don't open, don't open. And then you've got the politicians, and you've got other people wanting to have us, help and participate, which we have with, we were helping with masks for the hospital, and, all these other competing things. And so I would say that those have been the challenging, is that there is no normal anymore. That's the challenge.
And I'll add this too. I guess the overarching theme is just the uncertainty. That's what it all boils down to. It's just so many uncertainties, so many. I have 3 more meetings today, and they're more about discussions than trying to really bring true answers. And so until we can get more clarity, on certain situations happening on campus or all of the UNC systems, it's kind of really hard to, put a well structured plan together. You have 8 or 9 different scenarios that you have to plan for, right? So, and that's tiresome. So, it's really just about a lot of uncertainties. There's a lot of inquiries, but not a lot of answers as yet.
Okay, so we are getting close to, very, very close to the end. I wanted to throw in one more question, and then I was going to allow participants to ask questions. Excuse me. What has been a ray of hope or encouragement during this time?
That's a good question. I think watching people. So my library, we were supposed to be moved out of the building as of May something to begin our renovation, and watching people really level up when it came to working from home and thinking of new workflows and efficiencies with the workflow has been really inspiring, because now that means that you might be able to work from home throughout the renovation project, but it also means that for me, watching the staff really support each other and jump in and help each other. And not that they didn't do that at first, but just watching the camaraderie and the team approach that they were able to finesse through this just made me encouraged, because it we do recognize that we are a team, and that we cannot make this thing called the libraries work without the collective effort of everybody, and that every part fits in into the puzzle. And so I'm hopeful for that. I'm encouraged, because it just means that we can really look at our workflows and really think about what we're doing, and really changing the services that we do. We might be able to abandon some things that people have held on to, but now that we've been unable to do them, is like, how vital were they? And it has allowed us to really look at, who do we need to be for our campus right now? Who do we need to be for the campus as it's evolving and taking on new initiatives? So it's allowed us to really interrogate our services and in terms of what we should be doing to continue making ourselves vital for the campus. And so I'm encouraged by that, because, you know, some people hold on to things that because it's the way we've always done it. And just because we've always done it that way doesn't mean it's the right thing to still be doing. And so I think people are more apt to respond positively to that question now, is why are we still doing it? So I'm encouraged.
I would say, just to piggyback a little bit off that, validation of services. You know, this is some time to look at, again, workflows, assessment of some of the pros and cons maybe that has happened. Luckily, I'm getting the chance to talk to all of my employees at A&T. I'm doing some one-on-one sessions. So when I have some time, we're zooming it up, and hopefully we can transfer over to Teams one day, but it's okay. But we're zooming it up right now, and I'm getting to know everybody. So I think that's good. But I think when it comes down to, I have some things down here, and I look at what is hopeful for me is finding that connection with teaching faculty. You know, hopefully they are on board now in regards to them understanding how the library can help them. You know, in years past, I'm sure at every university there's been probably some push about, you know, faculty, you need to learn, you need to learn Canvas, you need to learn Blackboard, you need to learn Moodle or something. And now at the time of need, everybody's running around with their head cut off trying to learn one of those three learning management systems. So I'm hopeful for that, because it's not a leisure anymore, it's a necessity. I think that scientific research, you know, I think that there is some beginnings of them seeing, publishers and vendors seeing, that open access is maybe a possibility that they can choose. You know what I mean? I think it benefits everyone. Now, of course, you have to figure out some financial things within that. But I think as of right now, because of COVID, you know, they are opening up a lot of open information to everybody. And I think that's a blessing. So if we can continue to do that, I'm hopeful for that. And you know, digital fundraising, you know, you look at ways that not just libraries, but all entities need to move on and move forth, you know, because of budget cuts, because of whatever external, internal factors, shortfalls of budgets. We're going to have to find ways to find funding. Of course, grants are probably still going to be there, hopefully, but then too, you know, we're going to have to find donors in different ways as opposed to hand-to-hand, face-to-face. So digital fundraising will be another thing. So I'm hopeful for those type things. I see it changing for the better. You know, libraries in the past, you know, probably from 1930s to the mid-90s have kind of been one-way structure, but ever since the mid-90s, from the tech disruption, every 3 or 4 years we've had to change. And I think we always do a great job in trying to validate ourselves within that change. And I think it doesn't stop now. You know, why should it stop now? So we'll adapt, we'll change, and that's what I'm hoping.
I would say, again, my colleagues, certainly they've covered some things that I would have said as well. You know, what I would say, you know, because we are, you know, I know we're close to on time for the Q&A. My ray of hope or encouragement really is around having libraries as well as our communities be better prepared. I think people will now, you know, again, all the things that, you know, in learning how to use those tools, allowing people to actually telework, you know, for schools. And I'm encouraged that we will probably have a better relationship with our schools. We had a good relationship, but what I found was that they really, parents and students had a heavy reliance on the public library system and our resources while they were closed, while the schools were closed. And so, you know, I'm encouraged that we will have better relationships with the publishers. I did an opinion piece for Library Journal a couple of weeks ago talking about how, you know, we've been the only libraries, public libraries, academic libraries, other libraries, we've been definitely, we're not the stepchild of in the book industry, because we've been the ones who've still been purchasing electronic resources. I've been actually still purchasing physical books during this time as well. And so I'm encouraged that those relationships will get better. Open access, perpetual access to those digital resources, all opportunities for libraries going forward.
Okay, so we're gonna open the floor for some questions. The first question, how are your libraries preparing for the coming budget shortfall or budget shortages within your institutions?
That's a good question. So in our environment right now, it has not been communicated to us that we are going to face a budget cut at this point, but how we are preparing for that in the event that that something changes in the fall. So let me be clear when I say this. I don't believe in sacrificing people, and so if we have any vacant positions, naturally they won't be refilled. But we're going to cut our collections. We've diligently tried to make sure that we have very few things that are multi-year licenses. We have probably 5 or 6 products that are multi-year, that we license on a multi-year basis just to control the costs. Everything else is an annual renewal. So we would look at our open positions. We would look at, what in the collection could we cancel, because at the end of the day, I can buy that stuff back when the university's budget gets, when it stabilizes, if we get to that. And then we have a pretty generous travel and professional development. So we would reduce that. I wouldn't want to cut it out completely, because the staff still needs to be able to learn, whether that is we are paying for webinars or some type of virtual trainings. But when I first came into this position, one of my deans asked me if we ever had this point where we're going to have to make cuts, where are you going to start? And my response to her at the time was, we would start with the collection. And she was in agreement with that. Now she's my provost, and so we still have that agreement that we won't sacrifice people, because the people are hard to get back. And our staff is pretty bare bones, because when this library had to do the cuts in 2018, they took the opposite approach. We did, the previous director, one of the things he told me that he regretted was he went too deep into the staff. And so our staffing was cut drastically. And once you cut positions, you just can't get them back. So I'd rather cut the things that I know I can purchase or relicense. And so that's how we would how we are preparing to handle it if we have to do so at some point.
Anyone else?
I answered via the chat, but basically we're looking at not filling some of our positions and assessing those. Our budget, we have it now. What's there. The county isn't talking about any specific operational budget plan cuts. So we're just focused on, again, looking at open positions and maybe not filling those, or reassessing the actual needs of the organization.
Yeah, just to conclude, I mean, hopefully, depending on your institution, all institutions are different. All institutions are different. I'll say that. So, definitely looking at your line items and looking at spaces to whether it's might have certain line items or big pockets to where you can't afford to cut 2% or cut 3% there. As everyone knows, the last thing you want to do is cut human resources. I think we all can attest and agree that providing professional growth and professional development is far more important than taking away a position, cutting it.
Okay, so we have time for one more question, and I do apologize for that. How do you handle return library resources?
For us, since we started, as I said, our curbside and walk-up service a couple of weeks ago, from March 17th until then, we had our book drops all locked. Right now, we opened those up a couple of weeks ago. We are getting the materials. Of course, the staff is wearing gloves and masks. We're retrieving those materials. We're isolating those materials for 72 hours. We also are using these handheld UV sanitizing devices as well, and we have those at all of our locations to swan the resources, the materials that are being returned. We've asked our customers to return everything via the book drop and not try to hand the material to us when they are coming for picking up their holds via the curbside or walk-up service. So that's how we're handling the return materials at this point. 72 hours. I know some people are doing a week, some people are doing less than 72 hours. We chose 72 hours after looking at other public library systems and kind of what they were doing, and 72 hours seemed like a good number to kind of go by.
And we're only dealing with technology, and so laptops, iPads, those things can be disinfected. Of course, the staff member who does the exchange wears gloves, but our technology store, which is located in the library, is open, and they have a UV machine for devices, and so we pop it in there and sanitize it that way, and then put it back in the locker to be recharged. So it's easier when you're not dealing with books.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, when I was at Fayetteville, we just created a policy. We tried to shoot and get the message out that so individuals won't have to come back. We just all renewal policy. So whenever you do come back, you don't have to worry about trying to renew it. So we made sure that you could renew unlimited number of items. But when items do start to come back, just what Kelvin was saying in regards to that. At A&T, we're not lending out any books, but we're lending out, of course, laptops. So we have a building coordinator who is kind of administering that program as far as receiving devices, wiping them down, and sanitizing them down. So that's how we're doing it at A&T.
Okay, well, I want to thank you all so much for
Brittany, can I ask you a question? There was one question that somebody asked about how are we preparing our libraries for,
Mm-hmm.
Hey, did you want us to address that, or?
Sure, if you guys have time.
So for us, one of the reasons that I'm in the library today was so that one of our vendors was doing a walkthrough so that we could have the plexiglass installed at our service points and the social distancing circles put on the floor, and then in our elevators too, because for us, our university believes that elevators and hallways are a danger zone. If you get more than X number of people in the elevator, so we only want 2 people in the elevator at a time. You stand in that corner, you stand in this corner. We are doing that, and then we have 5 computer classrooms, so we are working to get the classrooms partitioned, getting the furniture spaced out, knowing that our students are going to move the furniture where they want to move it anyway. But we are, the question also said about masks. We're going to make sure that all of our staff have masks, but also people that are who come in, if they don't have masks. And I am so hesitant to call public safety on anybody, just considering what's going on right now. But if we have someone who does not want to put on a mask, we're going to call public safety and let them deal with them, because we're on a health sciences campus. Many of our students are in the hospital where there are germs jumping all over everything. So you have to wear a mask when you come into the library. And so that's kind of where where we are right now, but we got some time to plan because we're not rolling anything out until August.
I would say, I mean, these are just discussions. This is some discussions I've had with provost and the dean and higher ups. But as far as North Carolina NT, discussions, nothing etched in stone. But probably discarding the use of water fountains is one real big item that was mentioned. Of course, so you would have to bring your own water for students or faculty. Plexiglass installation, of course. As of right now, most universities, janitorial services or facility services, they usually work from probably 5 a.m. to 2 p.m. I think what we're trying to do, or the discussion was maybe to have some additional funding in regards to extending those hours. So from not only from 5 to 2, but maybe from 3 to 10 as well. Since there might be a possibility of more evening classes, the university is suggesting that facilities might want to extend those hours up. I have talks with our department heads about, you know, even though they are extending those cleaning services, you have to treat it like your home. You know, treat your area like your home. You know what I mean? Not only is it a great presentation, it gives you a peace of mind. You know, so when you're coming in, first thing you probably want to do is just wipe down your area, because it not only will it make you feel that much more safe, but it creates a culture of cleanliness and security and safety. You know what I mean? So, you know, it's like ownership, own it. You know what I mean? What else? The mask situation, yes, we've had that discussion. Again, not etched in stone about having, I think I wrote that in the chat, having extra masks available. I think that ENT is acquiring that. For those students who don't come to the library with that, we can pass it out to them as well. And lastly, maybe closing earlier, just depending on the class schedules, and maybe devoting that last hour to cleaning up the library as well. So those are just some things. Again, I don't want to, somebody might be watching and say, oh, that's what the ANT is going to do, and run with it. But those are just, you know, items, suggestions, nothing etched in stone, possibilities.
Yeah, I just added a few things actually to the chat, but like Forrest, I didn't put the entire extensive plan, but we currently have plexiglass sneeze guards at our staff service points. We're not going to staff all of our service points. We're going to just staff a few so that we can make sure that we have the plexiglass around the library system, limiting computer usage. We had turned that off where people could kind of stay on the computer for, you know, if nobody was waiting. Now we're going to be limiting that to like 60 minutes. We've got the floor decals for social distancing, similar to retail and stores. We have a county executive order in place currently where you can't enter buildings or enter even grocery stores, et cetera, unless you are wearing a mask. So we're gonna, you know, people will be required based on that executive order to wear face masks. We have day porters that will be cleaning throughout the day. You know, staff will be doing some additional cleaning as well, but we're gonna really rely on the day porters and facility staff there. And making sure that we have an adequate amount of PPE and cleaning supplies is key to preparing to open. So that's why I'm not going to open all of my locations all on the same day. I'm going to phase them in. We're going to start with 7, and then we'll phase the others in based on things being in place, like the plexiglass, like the PPE, cleaning supplies, et cetera. So that's my thought process on regarding reopening to the public.
Okay, well, thank you so much. This concludes today's webinar. And I would like to thank you again for participating. The recording will be available. I will also add the emails for our panelists to that recording email, just so if you have any more questions, you can ask them. I encourage you to ask them, pick their brains. Please be on the lookout for additional cultural conversations. You can check out our webinars on our webpage, and also using the NCLA conference and events calendar. Thank you so much, and you guys have a great day, and please be safe. Thank you for participating. Have a great day.
All right. Thank you, guys.
Thank you all.
Thanks, everybody.
Have a good one.